by linking the philanthropy of an organisation like Microsoft or like Cisco to the programme, we can actually make government money go further, so we can increase the impact of a project which hopefully will benefit many, as I say, many tens of thousands of organisations. I think creative interventions like that, for me, are kind of the way forward. And it seems to me that the success that we'll have in persuading further funders to get involved in projects like that is to be able to substantiate the social impact.
Something that I need to go back in my own life and think about as a grant maker is how I can use technology grant making more effectively outside of our role as a TechSoup partner, but within the networks that we're trying to influence and serve. Because I'm pretty impressed that we have 3 very serious, very challenging issues in the European context: Roma, migration, women's rights as well, the development of philanthropy and community engagement, that for relatively low investment have developed some very meaningful solutions.
The reflection that I've got on what I've just heard is it revolves around the people on the coalface, the people who are supporting people in whatever area, be they women or migrants or Roma people. I do believe that there is definitely a definite tangible benefit. But I think the biggest thing is often the first step that the beneficiary has to make. And there's a centre manager that I know who says his first session takes place in a car park outside, where he has to convince the person to walk through the door to change their life. They're stood there nervously pacing up and down, wanting to go through the door, but not really sure quite how to do it. Aspiration. If you can give somebody the aspiration, that stays with someone for life. It's not something that goes away. It's like riding a bicycle. Once you've learned how to aspire to something better, you always want to aspire to something better.
Technology is the great equalizer here. And I was also struck particularly by the examples with the Roma project about how technology is so non-geographic and how beautifully it applies to Roma populations because they are non-geographic. So building a social network that spans 2 continents of Roma is pretty incredible. I'm also struck underneath this by the belief that technology is this great equalizer. And while I believe it, I never know it for sure. I always think it, but I never know it. And I was curious with all of the presentations how much the capacity of the NGOs to deliver is an issue in all this. I know it is in the States that NGOs are actually, they suffer. They suffer on the budget side, they suffer because trying to keep up with this stuff that changes commercially faster than any of us can keep track of. It's rough for an NGO. It must be really rough on the ground with the projects that you're running. So that's what struck me across the board. That funding issue comes back.
In the government department, we've been talking a lot about ICTs as sort of a double-edged sword, in the sense that ICTs, connect people and they provide tools to maximize potential, as you said, Sylvie, with Microsoft's sort of overarching agenda. But on the other side of that is that ICTs are inferior, some argue, to the face-to-face communication, and that ICTs are replacing those traditional forms of civil society, in such as protests and town hall meetings and such. And so I was wondering, at the forefront of civil society, how you see, how you address this challenge of, on the one hand, using these tools to bring people together and bridge these divides in ways that have been really monumental to this generation, the millennial generation. But on the flip side, how do you address the challenges of isolating technologies that disorient communities?
My name is Joanna Breidenbach. I'm founder of an internet platform which does very much what you are doing in Slovakia, betterplace.org. We are based in Berlin. But I'm also an anthropologist, and when I looked at all the internet communities and research about anthropological, empirical analysis of what is happening with people who go online, you find that it's not an either or thing, but it's a, they do both things at the same time. And that's what also my experience with Better Places. We get loads of people from all over the world together. I mean, we have 2,600 projects on the platform and 30,000 donors. People meet who have never met before online, but very often, then people go on holidays and they visit the projects and they post comments about the projects on the website as kind of a feedback about the work an organization is doing. So I feel that this is very much interconnected and it's not an either or. And maybe I would like to also go back to one thing about the technology as the big equalizer. What we see on our platform, because it's completely open, everybody can register their project. We don't only take, organizations listed in Germany as charitable. That you really have this phenomenon where you see that the long tail of help is materializing, where organizations and small grassroots initiatives, which before never had the chance to be visible to a larger public, that they suddenly are able to present what they are doing on an equal footing with SOS Children Village, with UNICEF, because they have the same kind of features, and they even have an advantage because the small grassroots projects are much better at giving authentic stories back, giving authentic feedback, whereas the large NGOs struggle with this because they are so disconnected from the work in the field that we find that those organizations perform better on Better Place, which are more local, which are smaller, haven't been visible before, in a way that's technology enabled.
My name's Jenny Gill, I'm from New Zealand, and we're a foundation, but we've been supporting a project around ICT, and it essentially started as a learning project because we identified that for Māori and Pacifica children, they're not succeeding in school for really, very complex reasons, but one of them is simply that in their families there aren't computers. So the assumption when the teacher gives the homework is that the kids can go online. And so the project started by putting computers into homes, but the community spin-offs in terms of the parents and the older brothers and sisters has been really interesting. So like one technological innovation which was aimed to address one issue, which was actually an educational issue, has had this extraordinary social outcome for the older generation and for the old people, and it's one of those sort of unintended consequences. So it's just fascinating, I think, in this context, because it's not just top down, it's actually about what's happening in someone's home.